Now, former federal prosecutor Temadayo Aganga-Williams and criminal defense attorney Jeremy Saland, who previously worked as a prosecutor for the Manhattan DA's office. And Jeremy, I know you feel strongly about these federal charges. Again, it's 2 counts of stalking, murder through use of a firearm, a separate firearms offense. What do you make of it?
Yeah, there's a term bigfooting, and I think there's a little bit of a turf warfare internally in terms of the Southern District wanting a piece of this publicity. This whole charade of this perp walk was pretty notorious in terms of, making a scene of something it didn't need to be. It was almost a tour de force cinematic. But the bottom line is you don't see the Southern District, for the most part, if at all, grabbing people who commit interstate crimes and domestic violence situations and having the mayor come out and all this happen. Let's deal with it in the 4 corners of the state system. This is a murder 2 case more than likely. That's how this case should proceed.
Do you agree, Temadayo? Why do you think the federal prosecutors in this case decided to pile on charges? Could it complicate proceedings?
Well, I think one thing that the federal prosecutors and the state prosecutors and Luigi Mangione all agree on is that this case is about more than just a murder. Mangione has this concept, health care. He has this broader mission. And I think, frankly, the SDNY, the Southern District, the federal prosecutors agree. And that's why they're charging here. This life that this case has taken on has brought federal interest because it's garnered so much interest, focus. And I think they're trying to send a message that, frankly, I don't think the federal case will likely go forward. As of we know now, the state case will proceed first. I think he'll be convicted or he'll plead out. And this federal case will likely not see the light of day. But it sends a message generally that the federal system takes it seriously and will bring the full weight down upon anyone who does this.
Jeremy, Mangione's lawyer claimed the federal and the state theories of this case are actually completely different. In fact, may actually conflict with each other. She said the Manhattan case talks about terrorism and potentially influencing a group of people, while the federal case is stalking an individual. How do prosecutors get around that? And is that a preview of the defense?
Well, you can have 2 different theories of your case. I mean, that's not something that's inconceivable. You could be stalking an individual while also wanting to send this greater, larger terroristic message, if you believe that. Though I think if you're looking at the theory, the stalking theory arguably is a better theory, in my view, than this terroristic theory. Again, we can agree to disagree on that, but it seems to me that a lot of the things that he was doing, meaning Mangione, was internal. He vocalized some of it, but you have it in his writings and what he's been saying online. He didn't publicize his terroristic act, if we're going to use that term, after the fact and make everyone fearful that something else was coming next, other than really those shell casings. There's some other evidence, too. So they may be a little bit in conflict. But to your point before, one may never proceed. It just may end up being the state case.
Speaking of those writings, we have heard from the federal complaint specifically that it contained several handwritten pages in a notebook of his expressing hostility toward the health insurance industry, and wealthy executives in particular. There was that August 15th entry that the details are finally coming together. He allegedly writes, the target is insurance because it checks every box. Another entry marked October 22nd saying, 1.5 months. This investor conference is a true windfall. Temadayo, how damning is that kind of evidence?
Well, it's incredibly damning. I mean, I think this case in so many ways is an open and shut case. I think what's interesting about the federal complaint, though, the stalking charge is not that common. And I mean, the stalking charge, for example, requires that he traveled interstate and have put a person in reasonable fear of death. Here, he walked up and he shot the victim in the back and killed him, as I understand, pretty instantaneously. So I don't know how easy it's going to be to prove that he put the CEO in reasonable fear of death, because it was not the traditional stalking someone, threatening them, kind of a process problem. So, you may see the Southern District having a slight issue there. But I think overall, these aggressive charges do one thing, is that they put pressure on a resolution. When you're talking about the possibility of the death penalty, when you're talking about the possibility of life imprisonment, that's where the pressure comes, because he's 26. Even if he did 30 years, even if he did 40 years in prison, he would still come out. But when you're talking about life or death, that's when you may see a pretrial resolution.
New York State hasn't even had an execution since the 1960s.
There's no practical, I think, expectation that there would ever be a death penalty here. Even if there is a federal trial, and even if it's bifurcated and whomever is sitting at the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Attorney General says we should move forward under death penalty, New Yorkers, for the most part, don't support a death penalty. And to get a jury, assuming that the federal case moves forward, to all say, yes, we want that, is probably very unlikely. But it is that heavy-handed sort of sword and hammer to get a resolution. Is that just? Is that right to overcharge? Maybe not, but that's where we are.
Jeremy Saland, Timothy Gango Williams, gentlemen, thanks so much for coming in. Happy holidays. All right.